Here. Okay. Well, hello everyone. I'm here with my friend Kenny Dean. He is the Denver's premier personal trainer in downtown Denver. And we're here to talk about all things physical fitness and how it relates to health and menopause health and things like that. And I'm going to let Kenny take it away and tell you all a little bit about himself.
Yeah, so thank you. Like she said, I am the owner of Limberstone Fitness. My name is Kenny Dean. I operate out of a small private studio in downtown Denver. I do also train people online, especially right now, but I do in person as well. And I basically help people improve how they move. I work with a lot of clients to help stay active as they age, whether that's resistance training or cardio or outdoor recreation. I basically try to imagine myself as the glue for someone's health and wellness. I just keep it all together. I oversee a lot of what they do on their own as well as with me. Part of my specialties are in outdoor recreation. I myself am a pretty avid outdoor enthusiast. So a lot of what I do with clients is help optimize what they do themselves, whether that's skiing, mountain biking, hiking, running, all those kind of things. But the overarching thing or philosophy of my training is helping clients find their fitness freedom, which essentially just means that they're in a better place to be able to do whatever they want to do, whether that's new or old, that they want to try, but giving them the confidence in their body to be capable and reduce risk in those activities.
And I like that. I like that fitness freedom.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's like the center of all of it. A lot of people are specialists. You know, they say, I only ride my bike. That's my only form of fitness. Mm-hmm. And while I think that's a great thing, you should have the availability to do or try all these different new modalities of fitness, especially now with like, there's 1,000 types of fitness studios out there and workout classes and at-home stuff going on right now. And so we found that a lot of people are actually injuring themselves doing these at-home workouts because they weren't really prepared. You know, they just went from the one activity they did to now I'm jumping into this high intensity class with the pair of dumbbells I bought, 20 years ago. And they weren't really prepared for that. And so that's something that I try to do is give people kind of a general physical preparedness so that if they never work with me or hear from me again, I know that they're going to be okay on their own. It's kind of my main goal with all my clients.
And if someone is doing an online or all of a sudden, stuck at home and can't get out, is there an online platform that you recommend versus another?
Yeah, I think a good place I like to point people is a company called Onnit, ONNIT. Okay. I know they do a lot of programs that are body weight or kettlebells or kind of like animal flow, I think yoga, body weight strength. So I look to them and I look to the ones that explain things and teach you things. I'm not a big kind of, uppity, let's just do high knees type workout guy. If you're not understanding the why of what you're doing, then it's not really doing that much for you. So anyone that seems to be education based with their approach is going to be good enough for me to recommend to somebody. But when in doubt, hire a coach, and then that coach is going to help you find the need for yourself that you might like or, need to try.
Right. I totally agree with that. I'm a stickler for form as well, no matter what class I'm taking. Or years ago, I was a personal trainer, and that was my big thing is you got to have the right form.
Yeah. If you don't know what you're doing wrong, you can't inherently do it right. So you need someone to help you with that. Myself included. Like I have my own coaches just for my own stuff because I don't have eyes outside of my head. And please, for the love of God, don't rely on the mirror. The mirror lies to you. Like you can't see everything at once. Yeah. Okay. Who would have thought?
It lies to us in so many ways. Yeah. Cool.
And, a main focus point of what I wanted to kind of come on here and talk with you today about, because I know a lot of your clients are typically women that are over 40, and the big kind of elephant in the room, if you will, is kind of menopausal training and how it affects our bodies, both nutritionally, mentally, physically. There's so many assets that it attacks, and how can we alleviate a lot of those issues that come with it? Which is great because we can do things about that, both primarily naturally is what I think you and I both would recommend. Right. Is always the first step. Of course, medicine sometimes does have to intervene, but exhaust all natural options first is kind of a philosophy I try to live by. Then when you run out of options, of course, you can seek some more kind of intensive care if you need it.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things I wanted to kind of bring up in that realm are the health complications that come with it, and kind of what we can do about it. The most common ones you're going to see are weight gain, muscle loss, an increase of heart disease drastically, and osteoporosis, which, if you're not familiar, is bone density decreasing. And almost all of those things are related to the sharp decrease of estrogen, which, is a term that's thrown around there in terms of like, don't eat soy and those things. A lot of us think of it in a very surface level, but like it's a natural occurring hormone in the body that men and women need in certain, ratios. And when it sharply decreases, we notice things drastically. I always like to think if something happens fast, it can negatively happen fast. So I have a lot of clients right now, we're talking during our quarantine time, that are saying, I gained 10 pounds and like, I'm so worried. And I said, you gained 10 pounds so quickly that like, it's not, it's not yours to keep, you've had forever. Cause quick on, quick off, slow on, slow off is kind of a way I like to look at things. You're just as likely to lose it as you were to gain it in the last 2 months or whatever time it was. So with the kind of increased risk of heart disease, I wanted to mention that you can do something about that. You'll see a common theme with everything I talk about is that you can do something about that. Personal responsibility and personal action is huge with me and my clients.
Right.
So, essentially, if you think about heart disease, we're talking about the heart. The heart is a muscle, and the heart can become stronger. And it can be done through aerobic activity and resistance training. It kind of plays a role in both. But if you think of the heart, that's your metabolic engine. That is the thing that works all day, every day. And if you don't add more work to it, then it will slowly decline in its health. Just like the body, just like the muscles, just like the mind. If you don't use it, you lose it, essentially. And then if we talk about, bone density, I was talking about osteoporosis, which again is just your bone density decreasing, which no matter who you are, it happens over time. That's just part of aging. But the number one way to work on that is resistance training. It's pretty much the only solution that's natural. And that's purely physics based, right? Your muscles attached to your bones, so they pull on your bones with so much force. So if I make my muscles stronger, they're going to pull on that bone harder. The bones have to go, okay, I better get stronger, or at least I better not decrease, because then I become more brittle. So it's a defense mechanism, right?
That's a good kind of stress on the bones. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, it's incremental. It's small. It's not like we're just like trying to do a backflip all of a sudden for the first time in our life. That can hurt you. These are incremental, methodical changes to the body. I like to use the analogy that if you take two plants, you put them next to each other as they grow, and one has no wind at all, and one is grown with some wind at all times, the one with wind will actually become stronger because it was forced to adapt over time to stimulus of force. And it's the same way that our body works, the exact same way.
Yeah, that's a good point. So is there, you talked about both cardio and resistance training. I know a lot of myths are around about which is better for weight loss or health, or do you adhere to more cardio or more resistance training if someone is gaining that, menopausal weight or the quarantine 15 type of weight?
Yeah. I kind of take that into two ways. So both are good. I always have to say that. Both are good. Both are needed. The advice that's quick for anyone is you should be doing the one that you're not doing. If you're doing a lot of cardio, you should be resistance training, and vice versa. I know plenty of men and women that only lift weights, yet they're winded walking to the refrigerator. So you kind of have to balance the two. What I find most, particularly in women, is women do more cardio than resistance training, because what we find with the advent of MyFitnessPal and these little high-tech watches that tell us our cardio output is our calories burned. When we start to like that number, we like to see, oh, I burned 300 calories today. Sadly, that's not the most accurate way to track that. And honestly, nothing is that accurate in that regard. I actually prefer people to do cardio purely for their health and zero for their calorie burns. because you're not a formula. You're not that simple to guess how many calories were burned. And if anything, you adapt quicker than you think to cardio, and you're just trading your time for calories. You know, you can't train that hard every single day, all day for 3 hours to offset your, let's say, eating or weight gain. On the flip side of that, weight training is an investment, right? It's passive income. If you strength train your body, which essentially builds lean muscle, it burns calories all day, every day, even while you sleep. It's your passive income. So you're not any longer trading your time for your calories. The best way, in my opinion, to keep weight off your body or lose weight kind of in a steady, long-term, healthy manner. I don't like super fast weight loss or crash diets or anything of that manner, because it's just a yo-yo. It's going to come right back. It's very common. We've all seen that happen, probably you and me both. And what you find is if you build that passive income of muscle from resistance training, it does that work for you, and you're able to make your joints more stable and strong and resilient to injury, which comes into play for our cardio, whereas cardio injures a lot of people. Running is the highest injury rate of all sports. I've experienced it myself. And so if we strength train appropriately, our joints are more capable for cardio. So it's a happy marriage when you do both. Does that kind of help answer that question?
Yeah, it does. And I think I've been a runner since high school in one form or another. And I think what's actually helped me run so long is that I also do resistance training.
Yeah.
So that makes sense. Let me ask a little bit about your clients or you. What do you think is your superpower with your clients? What's the magic that you have that clients come to see you?
Yeah, for me, I think some of the things I bring to the table the most for my clients is adaptability. I try to educate all my clients that there is no set workout you have to adhere to. Doing something for your health in the moment is what matters. So I'll have clients come to me, particularly I have my longest standing client in Denver in person. She is 74 now, I believe. And she has grandkids, and her grandkids beat her up. I mean, just they're little. They don't physically, literally beat her up. They metaphorically beat her up. You know, and she's on the ground all the time with those grandkids. And she'll tell me some days when she comes into the gym, I feel stiff and sore. You know, my shoulder glitch feels like it's there. And so we just spend that day, you know, working on that stuff to kind of get her out of those symptoms. But then other days she comes in feeling super fresh, super positive, super motivated to work hard. Then we maybe do more strength training, or we push those numbers a little bit more. So the adaptability in the moment is the most important thing. Every client needs a plan A, B, C, all the way down. Not just, this is your program, that's what you do, and you got to push yourself into it. You know, you don't put square pegs in round holes. If it's not going to fit, it's not going to fit. You need to have all the options in front of you. And actually, that's part of the name of my business. My company name is Limberstone Fitness, and that's a duality to me of fitness. Limber is the adaptability or the need to kind of be malleable with the moment. But the Limberstone, stone is, you still need a foundation of strength. You know, you need accountability, you need structure and routine. So you have to know how to have the yin and yang of both of those for the moment. And that's something that is like paramount in my training with clients. There's not one size fits all.
Right. Yeah, I think we've all been to those big box places where they try to fit everybody into the same round peg, and it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, we got a visitor.
Nice. So there are lots of myths, and I know especially women who are going through menopause or the older generation are still believe in some of the myths around resistance training. Can you kind of dispel some of those?
Yeah. One of the biggest I see, and this is of all ages from women, is I don't want to be a bodybuilder. I don't want to get bulky. I'll have you know that it is extremely hard to look like that. It takes
you got to be taking a little more stuff.
yeah. Outside of steroids and supplements, it takes decades and you know, all week long of training. It's like Most people aren't going to do that. You don't accidentally wake up and look like a bodybuilder and you're bulky. Some women do have a little bit of genetic play that makes them, you know, a little bit more like strong looking, just like more dense in general. And that's just genetics, and like you look the way you look. And I think self-acceptance and self-love is the answer in that regard. But outside of that, outside of the dedication it has to take to look like that, most women just aren't going to look like that. What you will look like is the lean tone look that most women would kind of aspire to be. To me, if you resistance train, you do aerobic training, you will be healthy, and healthy always looks good, right?
Right.
You know, most people that resistance train don't look like bodybuilders, so you won't look like that.
That's true.
Another one I hear is that I don't have time. You know, a lot of women are mothers, and a lot of mothers, they don't have time. They're extremely busy with their kids and maybe a job and whatever else they're juggling. And to that, I say it's not as big of a commitment as you think. You don't need to train every day. You know, I think it's part of maybe the American mindset of like, I have to do everything to the max. But to me, what matters more for my clients is the minimum effective dose, not the maximum effective dose. You know, you do not need to get everything. A saying I like is, don't let perfect be the enemy of good. You don't need the perfect program to get results. You just need a good program to get results. And then you just need to adhere to that program. So that's a big one too. It could be 2 days a week. It could be 30-minute sessions 2 days a week. It could be 10 minutes a day, right? There's so many ways to change it in your routine to make it work, rather than, you know, I can't get away from my kids for an hour, so I won't do anything. That make sense?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And along those same lines, if someone doesn't know where to start, they've been sedentary for a long time, what would you suggest as far as getting started?
Yeah. I think you might have said this to me once when we were chatting. Walk. Go walk.
Okay.
Go walk. Yeah, like I know that's crazy and revolutionary and people pay me to hear that, but first step is walk, right? Kind of like what I just alluded to, that point was you don't need to do everything all at once. Doing anything harder than what you're doing will elicit change and growth. So even if you're not walking, you should start walking. And if you're walking once a week, you should probably double that number, right? And start doing a little bit more there. That's at least in terms of like not being sedentary anymore. But an overarching theme to improving yourself physically is you have to do something a little bit more challenging, then you have to adapt to that, and then do something a little bit more challenging. In my world, it's called the principle of progressive overload. It's just that simple. It's a simple formula in that regard. And that could be through walking, that could be through running, that could be through weightlifting. But you need to start to challenge yourself just enough that you are out of your comfort zone, not in a dangerous way, but out of your comfort zone. And then you have to do that until it's easy, and you have to do a little bit more. And for some people that are truly sedentary and don't have the time to go for a long walk, because sedentary doesn't mean that you're crazy out of shape and you can't lift any weights. It just usually means you're too busy to even do a physical activity. Typically I find that. And in that regard, I say then you need like a 10-minute routine to start at home that involves a little bit of mobility stretching, a little bit of body weight strength, and maybe a tiny element of cardio where essentially you start breathing a little heavier than, walking. And you just start there. And if that's all the time you have and that's all you commit to, you're going to get more out of that than you were doing before. You are inherently going to be healthier because of that.
And what about people who do a lot of sitting? I think I noticed some office exercises on your website.
Yeah. They say sitting is the new cancer, or it's the new smoking. And a lot of us demonize the hip flexors, which are essentially the front part of our hip, or our kind of pocket and our zipper meat. While that is demonized, I'm a huge believer that there is no perfect posture, and sometimes it's impossible to avoid sitting for your job. I know a lot of people that have desk jobs that it's so incredibly mentally taxing to do that job that they can't do it standing. They have to sit down. I mean, that's, if you think about the old statue, The Thinking Man, he is sitting down with his head down. That is the worst posture ever.
That's true.
So it makes sense that we have to sit. We are designed to sit also. But what I say to the person that needs to at least alleviate the problems of sitting is not necessarily flexibility. And I know that's the common answer, that's the common thought. I just need to stretch more. I'm not actually a big believer in flexibility. I'm a big believer in mobility, which the only difference between the two is it's your active use of your flexibility. I'll give you a quick example. Let's just say my arm can only go up to here by myself. I'm lifting it, maybe you're familiar with frozen shoulder. I can only lift it here. But then if somebody takes my arm and they push it way up here, that's my flexibility. But my active mobility is to here. So for instance, I have plenty of people that sit at the desk as my clients. They're super flexible. They're bendy yogis, but they still have back pain and hip pain. So how does that make sense? They're flexible. I can stretch their foot to the back of their head. Their hips are super flexible. But when I ask them to use their hip flexion, or essentially hold their leg in a seated position up in the air, it shakes, it cramps, it hurts, and it falls down. That's a scenario where strength training within your range of motion is crucial. We're actually finding now in like the physical therapy world that in the pain science world, that one of the best ways to get pain to go away is to train it appropriately through resistance, not stretch it. Stretching feels good, and feeling good is a good thing, but that doesn't inherently solve the problem. It sometimes just puts a Band-Aid on top of it. Whereas if we make that joint stronger, sitting is no longer a problem because it goes, that's not hard. I do way harder things, so it's not hard anymore. And also I'll highlight on that topic, posture, seated posture. You know, we've been told sit up tall, right? Perfect posture is super tall posture. And that's not the case. The perfect posture is the one that's moving, not the one that's stuck in any single position. You know, I know people that sit perfectly upright because they were told to do that at one point. Perfect, straight as a board. They have back pain. There's no correlation between straight posture and no pain. The correlation is the person that moves and constantly is in motion typically has less pain than the person that doesn't. So in that regard, for sedentary people, get up and move, even if it's a little bit of a break during the workday. Set an alarm, stand up, walk around, do some cat cows or some yoga movements if you do yoga, just to get some fluid and some motion going. That's what matters the most for alleviating pain.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Great. Tell me one of your favorite client stories. You told us the 74-year-old woman. That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. How much time do you have? Yeah, a couple that come to mind. I have one client who is in his mid-30s. He's a guy. He is a former, the Air Force, former Air Force person. And he's a cancer survivor who has had his kidney removed, you know, and because of chemo and cancer has gained a ton of weight, you know, became super sedentary. He's actually the guy I thought of when I thought of the needs to sit to work because his job is so mentally taxing. He can't have a standing desk. He just can't do it. And he's been with me for 2 years now. Chronic back pain, you name it. He has all the check marks on the list of pain and everything. Giant incision scar on his abdomen. And 2 years later, he can now deadlift pain-free, well over 250 pounds. He's starting to run again. He still has a little bit of knee stuff we're working through, but he's able to start running. You know, he feels more confident in clothes because he has some more muscle on his body. And because of that muscle, when he goes and travels, he can eat more food so he doesn't feel guilty like he comes back from vacation with a weight gain. Because when you have muscle, it needs more calories, so he can kind of get away with some leniency there. Coincidentally, he has a twin brother, and his twin brother always lifted weights. Kind of if you think about like twins, it's the perfect example of like one guy didn't ever lift weights and one guy did. And so the one guy that did, his numbers are up here. And now the brother, my client, gets to kind of match him and go, look what I accomplished. And that's a huge one. I'll give you another story that I just recently had a client, also in her 70s, who has osteoporosis, so that bone density loss. And she just got she's been with me for a year and a half, and she had a bone scan 5 years ago. And her most recent one, which was, I believe, 2 weeks ago, they showed that for the first time in 5 years, her hip bone has had 0 bone loss. I think I said all that right. Complicated to say, but, and coincidentally, that hip, she's had chronic pain in, stairs hurt. I mean, you name it, everything hurt to do with that hip. Right. So bone loss and hip pain, both completely gone. And all we've ever done is resistance train. I've never had her do real cardio. She goes for walks, but I have her deadlift. I have her do the movements that the big guys in the gym that are scary bodybuilders do, you know.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's no bad movement. There's just unprepared bodies for those movements. So, you know, a lady in her 70s can do the same general movement that a guy in his 20s is doing for maybe different goals, but they both have different benefits, or sorry, similar benefits.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
Is there a client that's kind of been a challenge for you?
Oh yeah. Oh, plenty. Plenty.
One comes to mind.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I was talking today with somebody that I find that the clients that are the most challenging are the ones that are crazy motivated. Like, I'll give 110%. I'm going to do even more than you tell me to do because more is better. You know, the gung-ho person, I find actually has the biggest swings. The person that has the highest highs typically has the lowest lows. And so I've had a couple clients like that where no matter what I say to them, it doesn't matter. They still think they got to do more, and more is better. And that doesn't always correlate to better results. And then the typical clients that, because some of the immediate things you get out of weightlifting or working on your health and wellness aren't immediate, they don't really put too much trust in the system. But, you know, what we're trying to do is change biology, change somebody's literal physical being. And that just takes time. I mean, you know, if you're, let's say 50 years old and you come to me for the first time ever looking to resistance train, you have 50 years of not doing it. So it takes a little bit of time to see some real drastic life-changing results. That though mixes in with sometimes not having enough kind of body awareness and kind of self-reflection to actually feel changes that are happening, whether it's immediately or week to week or year to year. So there's a little bit of that too, of, you know, mindfulness is a really huge thing. So whenever I have a new client, I want them to really think about what's happening as they're working with me, and not blindly do exercises. To me, one of the most important things to work on is intentional tension. To be intentional in the things you are doing when you're exercising. Mindless exercise does almost nothing for you because it can't be hard enough. If it's too easy, you can do it mindlessly. But like we said earlier, if it's hard enough to challenge growth, you're going to be intentional in the movement.
Yeah.
So that's point. Kind of where I see challenges.
Yeah. So what are some actionable steps that people can take today to get more physically fit or yeah.
I'll talk about aerobic health. So cardio, and you know, that's essentially, if you think about it, cardio is just your heart and your lungs. You use your body. 1 second. It's getting crazy outside. So, you know, if we think about the heart and the lungs, cardio does not care what you do. So a lot of people think I have to run or ride my bike to get cardio done. Nope. Your heart rate has to be at a certain heart rate zone for a length of time. So if you like to dance, I know Phyllis, you're a dancer. Yep. That works. You can dance alone in your room for an hour. Like, that's it. Just dance. That's cardio. What matters for cardio is you need to find something that you like to do. You will not stick to it if you don't like doing it. It's that simple. And if we want to talk details, typically it's recommended from what they've studied to get up to 2.5 hours a week of moderate activity, which would be kind of on the side of, you know, regular dancing, fast walks, easy jogs, bike rides, the things that you can still talk to somebody while you do it. Even though you might be a little out of breath, you can still talk to them. So about 2.5 hours a week, any way you want to break that down, you could do. Even technically, if you hike once a week, that could kind of count. I don't always recommend that, but that works. Although I do have to have a disclaimer here for aerobic activity. If you're on beta blockers or certain medications that adjust your heart rate, please consult your doctor. I know I sound like a commercial now, but like that's true. Incredibly important to know if you're going to do cardio is how to adjust based on your medications you may take. Super, super crucial piece. Now, in terms of resistance training, it's not as hard or scary as you think. You just need to train the general movement patterns of the body, which I'll break down as squatting or using your legs, double legs, single leg movements, lunges, single leg balancing things, push things, pull things, and carry things. It's generally that simple. Of course, there's nuances in there, but you need to sit down, stand up enough times that it's difficult. You need to maybe go up and down stairs or do lunges or single leg balancing movements until it's challenging. You need to do some sort of pushing, whether that's bands or push-ups or dumbbell presses overhead. Even if you have a baby at home, pick the baby up and down a couple times. You know, do something that is pushing, right? Pull things. We do that every time we open a door. So these are all functions of the body that we do every day. I'm not a big believer in body splits, or you might be familiar with like chest day. For every guy when they're 18 years old, it's Monday is National Chest Day at the gym. And
oh, I thought it was leg day.
no, we skip leg day. We always skip leg day.
Oh, okay.
That's the trick. So, you know, I don't believe in that style of training. I believe in almost full body exclusively, because every day is full body day when you live. So we should train that way appropriately as well. And then the details of that, you really don't need to do it more than twice a week. Sure, there's benefits to some more than that, but for the average person that just wants to be healthy and feel good, have less pain, and still enjoy their hobbies that might be physical, especially like I said, I have clients that are hikers and avid rock climbers, and like that's physical. So you can't do everything all at once. So twice a week, plenty. It's got to be hard enough that you are physically challenged, but not so bad that your form is loosey-goosey and breaking down. You should do it very uniformly and very controlled and very intentional. And then kind of like a piece to that I want to say, that I know we talked a little bit about menopause and women-specific stuff today, but like everything I said today is completely actionable and appropriate for every person of every age. I have clients in their 20s and I have clients that are in their late 70s, and I still approach both people the exact same way, although it might look a little bit different at the end. I still make them do some stretching mobility work, some cardio, some strength, and you know, I'll leave you with that strength is never a weakness. You cannot find an instance where strength is a weakness. And the only way to get stronger is to get out of your comfort zone, do something a little bit harder than you're currently doing, but in a safe way that makes you feel good and you get better at, and then do a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, and that's it.
Nice, good. One last question about the menopausal women. Have you found that some of their symptoms go away after starting a more rigorous exercise training? Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of symptoms, obviously, and one of them is a little bit more on the mental health side of things. You know, a lot of anxiety and depression can be found with menopause. Sure. Now, I can't speak too deeply into that because I'm not a psychologist. That's a little out of my scope, but I can tell you that lifting up something heavy or heavier than you thought you could do it will make you feel confident, and that inherently is good for your mental health. And I mean, outside of that, there's tons of, you know, studies to show that aerobic activity is good for your mind. You know, you can meditate while you're doing cardio, so that can kind of be a little bit of a bonus as well. You know, some of the symptoms are kind of hot flashes as well, and getting some and working through some of that stuff, you'll find that just getting blood flow to move around in the body, and that can be through cardio or resistance training, can alleviate some of those symptoms, as well as kind of the typical headache and what's the term I'm looking for more strenuous headaches? Migraines.
Migraines, thank you. That can help it too. Although I'll always say that if you're experiencing a hot flash, you are experiencing let's call it a very current acute symptom of menopause, your intensity needs to be way down. You don't go for your best day ever of lifting weights or running a race on those days if you can help it. So you do adjust, and that's kind of the adaptability I was referring to earlier. But yeah, I mean, it's funny that it's a free thing, movement, strength training and running and all that stuff. It's very free. You can do it anywhere. You can do it in winter clothes. You can do it naked. You can do it in your living room. You can do it at a gym, in your backyard. Like it's free. Just like breathing. Breathing is known to do a lot for hot flashes and headaches and such and so forth. It's free. So it's like, as long as you have a little bit of guidance on how to do it right, it's the cheapest solution for all that stuff. And of course, sometimes we want to reach for a bottle to have ibuprofen or something, and sometimes there is a valid reason for that. But like we started with, exhaust all natural options, exhaust all free options, like do that stuff and see how you feel first. Because I can guarantee that it'll help in some way. And it might even help in ways you weren't aware of, or you might not have expected.
Good point. Yeah. Is there anything we haven't covered today that you want to go over?
I think that seems to be most of it. You know, I touched a quick second there at the end of how doing strength training and working on your health and wellness will bleed over into other parts of your life that maybe you didn't expect. Kind of the confidence builder, if you will, right? Like a lot of people that have lifted for decades, they can credit a lot of their maybe financial success or relationship success to the dedication of having a very simple goal, a very simple task that they've worked at for a very long time, right? Committing to a goal will bleed over into everything else that you want to improve in your life. And that's an important thing. And it might even get you more community. Although in recent news today, CrossFit is taking a big downturn in terms of,
I saw that.
Yeah, not to get too deep into that, but let's just use them as an example. CrossFit did a really good thing, which was create community around physical health.
Yes.
And so getting out of your comfort zone and going to a gym that has a good atmosphere to it or culture to it, you might find new friendships. Like, you know, working on your health and wellness can open up a lot of doors in other parts of your life that can, you know, do a lot of good for you that you might not have expected.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
So how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. So the quickest way would just be to email me. You can email me at limberstonefitness@gmail.com. You can also reach out to my Instagram at limberstonekenny. I don't have a website right now. It just hasn't been needed lately for my business, but you know, in the future, I'm sure it'll happen. But you can email me or just find me on social media. That works plenty fine. Again, my name is Kenny Dean. You can also just look for me in that manner, or connect with Phyllis if you're familiar with Phyllis. She can lead you to me.
Absolutely. Great. Thanks, Kenny. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.